If I don't record this now, I don't think I'll ever, record it, so let's get it done. This is a very personal story that I'd like to tell, and it deals with a traumatic incident in my past that involves discussions of medical issues as well as allusions to self-harm. It's not a palatable or fun topic. I need to try and put it to rest in any way I can. For now, I just want to be heard. But I try not to be too graphic about it. I just want to give a heads up about that. When I was 15 years old, I figured out my gender identity, I lost all my friends, and I had debilitating back pain that resulted in a surgery, all in the same year. And I'm not sure how to talk about any of those things. When I say back pain, I mean the worst sort of pain that you can imagine, stemming from the lower back, down the thighs, and even past the knees at some points. Pain that's so bad that you can't stand up straight, that you can't walk or even move for long. Pain that could only be slightly alleviated by laying flat on the ground. And even then, it's still there. It's just the least amount of pain that you can manage. The cause of the back pain, I would later learn, stemmed from what is called a herniated disc at the L4-L5 level, which, coupled with spinal stenosis, caused my spinal cord to become pinched to an insane degree. I'll try to find some layman's terms, accessible way of explaining this. Maybe I'll put a link in the description, I don't know. The spinal cord is basically the superhighway to the rest of your body, stemming from, your brainstem, all the way down to your lower back. It's how the rest of your body gets nerve signals and all that. There's like an artery or something in there because your body needs to get fuel from your blood. I'm pretty sure that's how it works, but I'm no doctor. I'll try to find, resources for anyone who wants further understanding. I wish I still had the copy of the MRI because the space that should have been allocated for my spinal cord was just completely and utterly taken up by a massive hernia. It didn't just pinch my spinal cord, but completely and utterly smashed it. I don't know how else to put it. All of those nerves and blood veins forced through this tiny peephole, sending lightning bolts of pain down my legs to the point where I'd convulse and nearly throw up at times. I've never disclosed this following part of the story to anyone in full because part of me really blames myself. What if I was overreacting? The doctors and nurses know better than me. I should just suck it up and forget about it. Anyway, my nonna took me to a clinic to get myself checked out. I couldn't remember if this was before or after the MRIs, but it was the same healthcare organization that I got the scans at. I won't name what this organization is because I don't want to slander this entire organization because of the actions of one person, but I legitimately flinch whenever I hear its name. My grandmother had knee surgery last year and had her scans at that institution, and I was legitimately so terrified for her because of this experience of mine, and I didn't want her to be hurt like how I was. So, first off, I was in so much pain that I couldn't keep my back straight. I remember I was leaning against the counters and gasping for breath, because, if you're in so much pain, it tires you out. My nonna is one of the sweetest people you'd ever have the pleasure of meeting. If someone doesn't like my nonna, then there's a problem with them. That is a red flag for them. It is a bit hard to communicate with her as her first language is Italian, but being in the US for around 60 years, she's picked up on quite a bit of English. Still, she may not understand everything, especially if it's a bit more technical when it comes to healthcare settings. My mom helps her out when it comes to doctor's appointments and whatnot. Anyway, at this institution, I don't even know if it would be called an institution, whatever. Clinic? I'm not sure. Whatever. The people at the front desk of that facility were so freaking rude to her and mocked her. And I barely had the mental capacity to speak up and to clarify what Nonna was saying, and I certainly couldn't defend her properly. But I'd still carry such a heavy guilt that I didn't defend her. She didn't deserve to deal with that shit. And those people were such assholes. God forbid someone not have English as a first language. Anyway, this next part of what happened deals with an intrusive medical checkup that happened to me when I was underage, If you don't want to hear about a very intrusive medical thing happening to a minor, skip to the time code on screen. And I'll also have a little timer going at the bottom to show how long the story has left in case you want to scrub through the video. I was taken into an examination room soon after, and I was told to change out of my street clothes and put on a hospital gown over just my underwear. And a nurse or a doctor or whoever would meet with me shortly. I cannot remember what this person's position was, but she was the one tasked with giving me the checkup. The person who saw me was this tiny, ornery woman who started barking orders at me and getting mad that I couldn't fully touch my toes or do whatever stupid stretching she wanted from me. She had suspected that I bruised my tailbone, and that was possibly the cause of the back pain, and she said that she was going to check. And without explaining what this tailbone checking entailed, she pushed down on my upper back to get me to hunch over, and while holding her hand on my back, she stuck her hand down my underwear and ass crack and just felt around my tailbone to the point where she probed my anus a little bit. I remember her pressing hard on my tailbone with her fingers. She was rubbing it almost aggressively, and I remember her fingers, like the fingertips, like dancing across my sphincter, and I shivered. She was like prodding at it like she wanted to explore inside. Maybe she was just trying to figure out her position relative to like where the tailbone was. Maybe it was more sinister. I don't know. But that's what happened. I had no idea what to do in that situation. I was absolutely frozen. I couldn't shrug her off of me. Like, I could barely keep myself standing up to begin with. And I just stood there and let her grope around my ass. And I understand that the tailbone is close to the anus. I understand it's part of the butt. I get it, really, but this didn't feel like a medical appointment. It was something intrusive, crossing a boundary that I wasn't prepared to defend. And it felt like it went on forever. And I feel like I should have spoken up and I should have said, like, please stop, or I'm not comfortable with this, whatever. But I was scared of her getting mad at me. I felt so guilty over that experience and everything surrounding my back pain. I've always felt like this was some sort of deserved punishment. I had a fight with my best friend at that time, that whole year, I think. And I can't remember exactly what it was over, but I remember getting hateful anon messages on my old Tumblr telling me to, like, kill myself, whatever. And I knew she had something to do with it, because I think at one point someone was off anon, and it turned out that they were mutuals with my friend. Like, I knew, like, she must have told someone. She stopped talking to me at school and vagued about me online. And the friends that I knew through her would also stop talking to me. Like, I was friends with the rest of the friend group through her. So, I was at school less and less and less because of this back pain. I would beg to go home by midday just to rest. And my connections with everyone just slipped more and more. And I sometimes wonder if this pain was some sort of karmic justice for this fight with my friend, or if it was revenge for having come out to my mother as transgender at the beginning of that year, or if it was due to my slipping grades, whatever it may be, whatever. It all felt like a punishment, that I deserved this. And I want to say this incident with the nurse happened in October or November of that year, and this was actually the same year that Undertale came out. I distinctly remember on Halloween, I was sitting on the couch with my laptop, and I was trying to get through the Muffet fight. Every so often, someone would ring the doorbell, because, Halloween. And I'd put my laptop down and shuffle my way to the front door. There's a short hallway between the living room and the door, but it felt like a mile long. I would be out of breath by the time I got to the door, all because this pain took so much out of me. I have a sour taste in my mouth regarding Undertale as a whole, partially because of a few bad fandom incidents, but mostly because I associate it with my back pain. It's so intrinsically interwoven with that time period and with my experience that I struggle to separate it. My brain is really dumb like that, I don't know. I also just think like the game is kind of mid in general. It's a 6 out of 10 to me, and I think Toby Fox is a fine musician when he's composing for his own projects, but not for other productions. Anyway, that's my little... my 2 cents on a game that'll be more popular than anything I'd ever make. In early December, I was at the end of my rope. My mother would send me to school with a whole baggie of painkillers and told me to take them if I was feeling bad. The nurses stopped letting me lay in the nurse's office for a class period, and my teachers would stop giving me passes to go there, even though lying flat on my back was the closest thing I could get to some form of relief. My health class was the 5th class of that day, and I would constantly ask to leave to go out to the nurse during 5th period. I could sometimes hold out until 6th, some days I could only hold out until 4th, but around halfway through the day, the pain was usually far too much for me to stay in class. I didn't even pay attention in any of those classes. If I was fine just putting my head down on my desk, I would do that, but I couldn't even sit up without being brought to tears. And there was a day where I stopped by the water fountain on my way to go to health class, and I had the baggie of painkillers with me. I don't think I can explain this next part on YouTube without the video getting nuked from orbit, but I need to make myself clear. If you're in any sort of pain yourself, whether it be physical, emotional, or whatever it may be, and you want to escape the pain by any means necessary, please reach out for help. There are ways to relieve the pain while still keeping you alive and healthy on this earth. Nobody's ever beyond receiving help. You are worthy of love and of support. And I know these words may not sound like much coming from a stranger like me. And yes, I am a stranger to you, even if I may be spilling my heart out about a painful time in my life. But in a sense, I feel like every stranger is another you, if that makes sense. I take the train to go to college, and I look at all the people around me. Some are listening to music, some are reading books, some have pins or keychains hanging from their backpacks, some have t-shirts with characters on them, some are leaning against their significant other or are peering out the window, or trying to get another minute of shut-eye before work. If every one of those people, myself included, had a string connecting them throughout their whole life, trailing them and their experiences, at that moment, all of our strings would be bundled up and crossed over. It would be neat to see if these strings had crossed over before, if we were ever in the same place before, separated only by time. Where have those strings been laid where mine has not? Nobody will ever experience absolutely everything life has to offer, but cumulatively, everyone has experienced everything. Everyone has a string as rich and as complex as everyone else's. And there's no need to cut your strings short. Continue laying your string and getting tangled with others, finding new paths and new experiences. It is worth it, I promise. So, after the fountain incident, and after what I can't say on YouTube because advertisers are dumb, you can infer what I'm talking about, like baggie of painkillers, put 2 and 2 together. I ended up in the hospital. I had to get my blood drawn, and I must be clear, I am terrified of getting my blood drawn, even now. And I remember, funnily enough, to distract myself as the technician was drawing my blood, I was rambling about Neko Atsume, of all things, to distract myself. I was telling him about tubs. I remember that so distinctly. They didn't do any procedures to me while I was in the ER, but the doctor had told me that if it were any other brand of medicine, I either wouldn't be alive, or at the very least, they would have to pump my stomach and there would be some sort of kidney or liver damage or something. This had been the push to get my mother to find a second doctor to check me out. And a few days later, we were in another doctor's office who was going over my MRI. And I remember 2 things that day. The fact that I had laid out on the bed in the doctor's office because sitting up was excruciating. I was apologizing to him the whole time. I felt so bad. And I remember the words he said after explaining my condition. Lack of blood flow pain is the worst type of pain. And in that moment, I felt vindicated and yet so incredibly frustrated. Everyone thought I was overreacting, looking for attention, looking to get out of school, whatever. I was this bratty problem child, a delinquent, whatever. So the surgery was scheduled for that next Wednesday. That morning, we had to go to my school for a meeting regarding my accommodations. I had to be there, even though I was starving and I couldn't keep myself upright. I laid my head on the table and I just didn't pay attention. The surgery was scheduled for that afternoon anyways, and I was just desperate to get to it. I wish I could have slept until it was time to go. The lead up to the surgery wasn't very eventful. I was given some word search puzzles and got to choose a plush toy because I was technically a pediatric patient at the time. I wasn't even 16. I chose a soft pink unicorn. And in my mild delirium, I chose the very creative name of Dr. Unicorn. And I remember the nurses put a face mask on him as I was being wheeled into surgery. The post-surgery experience was entirely uneventful. My mom took off that Thursday and Friday to supervise me, while the next whole week I was left home alone to care for myself. I don't know why my grandparents didn't come over, or something, to watch me. I wasn't even a week out of surgery, and I was essentially left to fend for myself. And that is the core theme of the aftermath of the surgery, just fending for myself. I had to play catch up with some of the classes I missed in the previous semester. My health teacher gave me a packet on learning the reproductive system and just had me do it during my study hall. I wasn't officially placed in a health class and just had to figure things out. I think they thought I would just Google it. And the same thing happened with other classes, but I remember it distinctly with the health class. I wasn't welcomed back to school after winter break. My friends had all broken off from me long before the surgery. I essentially became a ghost, and I've struggled to break out of that ever since. It's been 10 years, and I'm a stagnant person. I've never got my driver's license. I'm in college, but I commute, and thus I've never had a dorm. I live at home and do the same routines as if I were a teenager. I also have some pain resonating from my spine down to my leg, though it occurs in bursts rather than being a constant. Everything stays the same as the world changes around me. I've tried to cope with the aftermath, but there's always something that reignites that old wildfire. A surgery in the family happened 3 years later. An immense flare-up of the pain required me to go see an out-of-state doctor in 2021. Multiple instances of the back pain and leg pain returning to the point that sometimes I can't get out of bed. I've indulged in fiction as an expression of catharsis. When playing Fear and Hunger, I found so many parallels between my life and the life of the character Olivia Haas that it was a bit uncanny. Both of us had spinal issues that happened when we were 15. Olivia got it worse than I did, but she is a much more successful character than I am a person. She achieves her academic dreams and she persists, while I'm stuck in an endless cycle. If I were to look at it in a positive way, she's a reminder that things can get better in the end. There's a scene in Dawn of the Deep Soul, the movie that takes place in between the first and second seasons of Made in Abyss, where the character Reg is taken for examination purposes. He's a robot who appears strikingly human, and thus is a curiosity to the character Bondrode. Reg is strapped down in a chair, bare to the world, wearing a mask, and forced to undergo these... It's like a series of medical tests that border on torture. It is a scene that's wholly upsetting, unrelenting, intrusive, and horrifying. And I saw myself in that scene.
And there he is! There's me! Yay! Woo! Woo!
What the nurse did to me, mechanically, is nothing like what happened to Reg. But the feelings are all the same, this sense of helplessness and panic, the violation of the flesh in the name of anatomical discovery, the self-dehumanization that occurs as a result of the intrusion. People decry the series for such occurrences that happen to the characters because it's uncomfortable and upsetting. But that discomfort and upsetting feeling is something that happens to real people. And it makes things a little less lonely to learn it wasn't just you who it happened to. Reg and Olivia don't have to fend for themselves. They have friends who uplift and help them. Connection is such an important part of healing. So, why don't I have those connections? I saw a social worker once a week during the rest of my high school time, and I had a few online friends, but I never made any close in-person connections after that. Even now in college, I'm not particularly close to anyone. I have acquaintances, but neither in community college nor the university I currently attend have I been able to connect with someone else on a deep level. I was a wreck after the surgery, in part because it coincided with losing my friend group. Years later, my ex-best friend, the one that sent me those horrible anons and all that stuff, sent me an apology, and I forgave her. But not because I actually forgave her, but because I didn't want her to feel guilty. She didn't do anything to earn forgiveness, and nothing about forgiving her settled anything within me. And yet I gave it to her. I kind of regret it. I'm still burdened by everything that's happened. I had to drop out of a higher level English class to the lower level the following school year because that ex-friend was in that class, and I was terrified to be around her. There's a girl who I've been seeing around campus at this current university I'm at that looks like that old friend. It's not her, but I flinch whenever I see her because I think it's going to be that same person. Hearing her name, even if it's referring to someone else, just puts me on edge. I think it's legitimate trauma, what I feel over this friend. All I can associate her with is the isolation she put me through, along with the abuse and harassment spewed my way. All while I was dealing with the worst pain imaginable. I should be over this by now, don't you think? It's been 10 years, but I'm still not over it. I have to go on, but I can't move on. 2015 was the turning point of my youth, forcing me into a sort of early adulthood. It was too sudden and too unsupported, yet I still feel eternally juvenile. Emotionally, I've gone through more adult things, but milestone-wise, I'm stuck where I've always been, and I think that's part of why I can't move on. This being such a pivotal moment in my life also means that I can't ever shed it in its entirety. Everything leading up to the surgery and after the recovery, that whole year, is a core pillar on which I'm built, and it'll stick with me. In terms of self-image, I struggle to see myself as a concrete person. I use my little avatar here on YouTube as a visual representation, but the avatar isn't like me. He's a character that I speak through. Delvervi is his own little guy. I've had friends challenge me to make a fursona before, despite me not being a furry, but I thought hey, why not? I'll have fun with it. And what I came up with was essentially a narehate that wore a suit made of fabric. And I explained that it represents me because I have an outward self that I'm projecting, but inside I'm this little disgusting blob of fat and meat. I've made self-portraits before, one of which I submitted for a class project. It was a series of 3 sculptures, the first being a spine segment with lights that showed where my hernia was. The second, this MRI machine with the lower half of a person inside. The upper half was turned to gore and sinew made of this air-dry clay and embroidery thread. The third, this larger-than-life replica of a microdiscectomy, with the hernia inside resembling some sort of, little fetus thing. My self-portraits don't have a face to it. They're abstract. I removed the mirror dresser from my room and I put it in my closet. Not just to save space, but because I don't have any use for looking at myself. I don't like to look at myself because the person who stares back at me isn't me. I'm not sure who it is or what I'm supposed to look like, but it's not me, what I see in the mirror. Part of me wants to make myself inherently repulsive to others to keep them away. I don't have to deal with any falling outs or intrusive nurses anymore if they don't approach me. Part of me sees myself as repulsive already. I don't like my body, I don't like how my body has hurt me, and I don't see it as a sort of extension of myself, but something separate. I'm not sure where to end this because I certainly don't know where I'm going with it. I guess for now I just want to share my story. I want it to be known what I went through. It happened even though it shouldn't have happened, but that doesn't make it any less real. My health issues were ignored and minimized. The healthcare workers tasked with helping figure things out made me feel like a burden at best, as they treated my body like a piece of meat. And it took until a self-inflicted attempt on my life for any major push and advancement to happen. This happened to me. It shouldn't have, but I shouldn't have to act like it wasn't a big deal. As so many people just tell me, you need to move on, you need to let it go, you need to forget about it. I'm going to carry this weight no matter what, but the weight eases up a bit if someone helps shoulder it with me. Whether through fiction and allegory or real accounts of similar instances, I have found a bit of comfort and companionship with hearing other people's experiences and sharing my own. For now, a bit of myself is at peace, having been heard. So thank you for sticking with me through this. I don't usually make things like this. I like to talk about my favorite media on my channel, and I'm like writing a webcomic if you're interested in that. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, lift with your legs, and don't twist while lifting. And I hope you have a nice day.